So I'm going with another short video today and starting off with the parts list that I used on this figure. You can see it right there. You can back it up and take a look, or you can wait till the end, it'll show up again. But here is a before and after take of the figure. I really like the sculpt on this. Now that head sculpt is a custom. We'll get back to that in just a moment. First of all, let's get to how we got to this point. And I'm doing a new format here, showing you the figure throughout the entire video so that you can get a sense of what things took place. Now the key to painting on dark plastic or dark material is gray primer. The belt was already in a gray paint, but I went ahead and primered it so that the paint would stick to the actual material, and that yellow looks awesome. So the next step in this was to primer the rest of the armor, and the whole figure comes apart, by the way. You just heat it up very lightly with a heat gun or with your hair dryer, and it will soften the plastic enough to take it all apart very easily. The only thing doesn't come out are those rings that are in for the shoulders, but don't worry, you can still paint over those. Just shift them around and then spray them down and paint them. Now this looks so different with the gray primer. Now, going on to the next part of the segment, because this is such a short segment, I've got to cover everything very quickly. Everything was sprayed down, and I want to show you each piece individually so you see how it turned out. And as you can see, the feet also come off. It doesn't take a lot of heat. You just got to twist and tug until it comes off, and then you can go ahead and paint it. Now this next section shows you the common trousers, and the 4 pegs that you see there are where the belt is glued onto. So you take your E6000 glue once you're finished with that belt, glue it back on. Very simple. Now the arms have those pauldrons already attached. You can't remove them, they're glued in, but you can still paint it very easily and just mask out what you need. Now once you've got that finished, you can move on to the legs. I did not paint the bottom of the leg because it's not going to be seen, only the visible areas. So this is where we want to get to, and this looks really cool with that wash that I put in there. So I went ahead and sprayed down with different tones of gray, starting with the shoulder pauldrons, and I really wasn't happy with the gray that I had in there, so I had to come back and actually black wash it, and then I had to go back and dry brush it with a silver so that it looked more metallic, which is what you see now in this image. Now everything here has either a black wash or a blue wash that I finished off on the end, and I'll get to that in just a moment. So I started off by painting the light gray tones onto the actual suit, or the suit that's underneath the armor, and I really didn't like the way it turned out. It just looked more like long johns. So I went ahead and darkened it, and the other reason why I darkened it is because it just took away the eye just kept getting drawn to the bright areas, which is why I had to tone it down to the darker areas. As you can see here in the image, the bright areas are now at the belt and the face, and that's where the attention goes to. Now I changed the lighting so you can see what it looks like in standard lighting from a spotlight. Now I went ahead and painted gray blue, which is I mixed in a gray with blue so that I can get this tone. And it was still a little bit lighter here as it shows in camera. It's actually darker in person, but I still wasn't too happy with it. I later went back and I added a blue wash over that same gray, and it turned out so much better. Now I did the same thing for the legs. I did the grayish blue, and I did it for everything because you got to be consistent once you start spraying one thing. You can't change your spray technique or your color tones from each single piece. You got to spray everything once and then go back and redo everything if you're going to change the tones, etc. That way you have a continuity throughout the entire figure. So this piece, which is the arm, I switched the head on the airbrush so I can get into tighter areas so that I can get in underneath the armor without having to mask everything. It just made it so much easier. And then by having that small head on the airbrush, I went back with a dark gray and then outlines on some of the contouring that's on the armor, and then some of the outlining black lines that are in the crevices that you see there. I finally finished it with a black wash over the entire thing, especially on the shoulder pauldrons, because I just didn't like how they were taking away the attention from the rest of the figure. And I just went ahead and sponged it on to give it a texture. Eventually when it dried, that texture diminished. And then I hit it back with that silver that I mentioned earlier. And I finished it off with a high gloss Tamiya, and you'll see that in just a moment in the next tagline. So that's what's going to be important to do, is that black wash to get it into all of those crevices. And now this is after I painted the grays already in here. So the next step was to add that blue wash that I mentioned, and that was a mixture of blue with the metal or the gunmetal gray, and that turned out so nice. And it was literally just a blue wash with that gunmetal gray, and it gave me these tones that you see here. It looks so awesome in person. The lighting really doesn't pick it up as well on some of these images, but when you hold it in front of you, this is what you have. And there's that custom head sculpt that I mentioned earlier. There's the actual helmet that I cut out so it's hollow. And this is what the entire figure looks like once you have it finished and it's still separated. And now you can finish it off with a Tamiya X-22, which is a high gloss clear coat. It looks amazing. It's really thick like honey, so it does take a while to dry. I just let it air dry for about 6 hours. Now that custom head sculpt that I painted, that I bought on eBay from China. It took roughly 2.5 weeks to get here. It's a blank resin head, and then you just paint it to your liking. It turned out really, really nice. It is a gray sculpt, so it's easy to work on, and it takes the paint really well. There's another one that I bought, but the resin is not taking the paint as well as this one did. And then I did seal that one off with a matte finish Model Masters clear coat. And you can see the difference here. That high gloss clear coat on that armor looks really, really good. I did finish off the entire armor before sealing it with a dry brush silver, so it really shows off the metal pieces wear and tear on it. Now the cape you see here is a Mezco cape I bought on eBay. It was used, nobody wanted it, so I bought it for 25 bucks, and I cut the center off where the neck goes so that I can split that wire and put it onto the shoulders. So then I folded over the seam, glued it down, and I actually glued it down to the back of the armor. And the two pieces that go on the shoulder, I glued those down into the same sections where it was originally. And this cape looks amazing. So I'm going to leave you now with a materials list for you to keep in mind. You can totally change it. It is a custom sculpt, there's a Mezco cape, and there are acrylic paints of your choice that you want to use, no name brand specifically. I pretty much use the tester's paints. And there's an E6000 glue to put that belt back together. In the meantime, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, share the video, comment, and of course, if you haven't done so, this is the time to subscribe. There's more videos coming. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of the figure in the video without any overlays over the image, so you can definitely see the angles on this. Most important, keep customizing those figures. We'll see you next time.